What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. We have a very special guest joining us today. It's Andrew Wiggins from Establish the Run. Wiggins, how you doing, and how have the first 3 weeks of NFL been for you?
Doing great. Kind of mixed bag so far in NFL. The first 2 weeks, I doubled through in cash on both sites. This past week, I did. I won small on FanDuel, lost small on DraftKings, but I have not really made any noise in the GPP streets. So, a little bit of a loser so far in the season, but I guess it could be worse.
Hey, it could always be a little bit worse, right? But yeah, so we have a fun video coming for you guys today. We're gonna cover the first week of the King of the Gridiron contest that DraftKings is running. It's a 4-week tournament. You enter one main slate classic lineup per week. So $3,000 buy-in available only to DraftKings VIPs. 141 total entries. So very small tournament. First place is getting $100,000. That sounds like a nice payday. That'll turn your season around, right, Wiggins?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, today we're gonna go over our personal two lineups, and then also check out the team that is sitting in first place. So we're gonna start with Wiggins' lineup up here. Wiggins, a solid start in 37 out of 141, like I mentioned. So in the top quarter or so of lineups. Hindsight is always 2020. This, to me, Wiggins, I think from consuming your content before it, I get the take that most of your lineups are cash lineups with some lower owned pivots, and you play in mainly single entry, small field stuff. If that's wrong, go ahead and tell me. But hindsight's always 2020. Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently with the information that you had, or are you pretty happy with how it turned out?
Yeah, so I think GPPs have been kind of interesting so far this season. Some guys have been getting steam that maybe I wouldn't think. Like this past week, for instance, and I meant to look see what Hertz was in this. Like Allen's a little bit higher owned than he was in some of the tournaments I was looking at, like the Thunderdome, for instance. But some of the like chalky guys are not getting owned. And then like someone like Joe Burrow, well, I shouldn't say not getting owned, but I would say they're getting under owned.
Mm-hmm.
And then, someone like Joe Burrow, who's like the obvious GPP pivot, but doesn't project as well. He got steamed pretty bad this last week. So I'm clicking through the Gridiron team, or like Tua is a good example. Tua came in at 15%, almost the same as Josh Allen, certainly more than Hertz. Hertz was down at like 7% in some of the games I was looking at. So that's really interesting to me. And Hertz was 17 in this. So I feel like maybe people went a little bit more kind of a cash game route. That was kind of my intention here, where I just made a small tweak on the cash team. But looking at the ownerships, I'm not super thrilled with how some of it came out. But it's a fairly flat payout, so I think it's okay to not get too crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? It looks like you went a little bit more contrarian.
Yeah, I definitely got off the board more. I like this lineup as a whole. I had the thought. I was going back and forth. I really think I overthought it all week because this contest I think has sharper people than the average DraftKings contest. So I was kind of looking at players that I was trying to identify players that I thought might get steamed up a lot. And the only guy on here that I tried to avoid was Miles Sanders here. And for better or worse, I thought a lot of people would play Hurts, but I thought the people that didn't play Hurts would want some exposure to the Philadelphia offense. And
is charged.
and I came in over owned on the MME set, on my MME set, but for this tournament, I made the conscious decision to not play Sanders, even though I really liked him. He was a cheap running back that allowed you to pay up at wide receiver. So, on a team with a high team total, good leverage off of Hurts too. I think he was a really good play. But you also played my favorite pivot off of him, which was Josh Jacobs, and I did want to ask you about him because the sentiment around him was negative all week, from missing the team flight, not missing the team flight. He just didn't fly with the team. He was dealing with an illness all week, so he came later in the week. But usually when these guys sit up or suit up, they're good to go. And we saw that Jacobs had 19 opportunities. You got him at 8%. I think that's a great play. So, I really like both of these guys, but getting Jacobs at 8% compared to Sanders at 24%, I think was awesome. But
Yeah, I mean, to circle back to your initial question, I mean, kind of the way I went about building this team was it was pretty close to my cash team, but I knew I didn't want to play Fournette or Montgomery because I thought they were mediocre plays at best. And, you could poke holes in both of them, and they were going to catch a lot of ownership. I didn't see where they ended up here. Fournette kind of seemed like he was in the 25 to 30 range. And most of the stuff I was looking at, Montgomery was 45 here, I see.
Yeah, Fournette 40 too.
Yeah, so I mean that's really high.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you got lucky with Montgomery getting hurt, and maybe he goes berserk like Herbert did.
Yeah.
But you know, I was pretty comfortable fading this. So right away, you know, I'm taking the cash team. I'm going to get some savings down at running back. I was a little bit worried the Sanders would get steamed. 23, I guess, is okay.
Yeah.
Not great. There just wasn't much to like at running back this week, and some of the pivots I liked were the more expensive plays. But with this build, I wasn't going to be able to afford them. So, you know, circling or getting over to Jacobs, like he was one of my favorite plays of the week. If you looked at the projections early in the week, he was projecting as a very strong play, and then people started backing off of him because of the illness. I was never really worried about the illness because, first of all, guys don't usually miss games for illnesses, and it doesn't usually limit them. If it was that bad, then he wouldn't have played.
Right.
And once he made the flight on Saturday, you knew he was going to play, and so he looked like a really good pivot. You know, especially a good place to save some money. So I just, you know, it was an easy play. I didn't really overthink it. Just like he should be out there. He should be getting touches. I'm hoping that they control the game. They didn't, but he ended up catching 5 balls to kind of salvage it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I've played Jacobs 2 weeks in a row now, and it's pretty frustrating because they get down close and then they're just throwing it on the 1 yard line to like Devontae or Waller. So that's been kind of frustrating. We'll have to see how that plays out. But, you know, at 8% at that price and all the touches he got, I'm pretty happy with that play.
For sure. Yeah, I share the same sentiment with you about Jacobs. I've played him multiple places the last 2 weeks, and yeah, it seems like the touchdown is evading him for sure. But yeah, so let's get over to my lineup, Wiggins. I'm in up at 18 here. I should mention too, I did want to touch on what Andrew said about fading Fournette and Montgomery. It was such an ugly week. You know, if you had studied the slate at all, you know that it was a really tough week to build lineups. And like he said, Fournette and Montgomery, I think on any other week wouldn't be as highly owned, but just with everyone else not projecting as well, they got their ownership steamed up way higher than everyone else. Now with Montgomery's injury, we got lucky with that for sure. With Herbert going off, that's a lucky one. But I think the process was right there to fade, you know, a guy of his caliber, of his skill set at that ownership. I think the process was right, and then same sort of deal for Fournette. So I think makes a good point there. But you can see me and Wiggins both finished in the top 25% of this contest for week 1, and we had multiple snowflakes on the lineup. You know, that's not very many weeks that you can say that. But Wiggins, do you have any initial thoughts on my lineup before I kind of give my take on where I was going?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good lineup. Certainly got unlucky not getting the bonus with Dalvin Cook, but you got the Dalvin Cook, Amon-Ra, mini there, which I had done on my other team. Actually, I ran 2 GPP teams this week, so I like that. I thought, you know, getting off of Herb at tight end made a lot of sense. Juwan Johnson came in a little bit higher than I would have liked, but you know, what are you going to do there? And then, you know, getting Lockett. Lockett was another guy that was projecting really well that wasn't going to get played. And I like playing Drake London because Pitts was one of those plays where it just felt like he was probably going to get steamed. And I know in some of the games I was looking at, he was in the 15 to 20% range. I'll click around and see if I can find him in here. But, you know, I think, I don't know. I guess I'm not entirely sold on Pitts, especially with, I mean, Drake London's an absolute stud. So you get that clear pivot there for less ownership. And when Pitts only came in 8% here, that's kind of interesting.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I thought Drake London was a really good play. I'm curious, you know, if you had known that Mariota was going to come in at 10, 11%, would you still have played him? That's a little bit higher than I would have thought, and maybe would have made me a bit uncomfortable, although it's not completely outrageous.
No, 100%. And I actually have been kind of discussing these teams with a buddy of mine, and I was saying, you know, Mariota, I don't see how he gets more than 6-7% at the highest, and I was hoping, you know, for 5%. I think that's where most places had him projected for, was like 5-6% or so. So yeah, 10%. I think if you had told me that beforehand, I probably would have gone in another direction, especially if you would have told me Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts were only 17%. You know, especially at those ownerships, it's just way easier for those guys to separate. With Mariota, you know, I'm praying for like 22 or 23, you know, and he started off really well. I thought that we might be cooking with grease, but yeah, no, you're 100% right. Had I known he was going to be close to 11%, I probably would have gone in another direction. I did like, you know, getting the savings at quarterback and tight end. Taking the 0 isn't too bad when you consider he was only 2,900. It allows you to pay up at other spots. Yeah, I think I got lucky and equally unlucky with the Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I liked Edwards-Helaire as a low owned pivot off of guys like Sanders and Montgomery and Fournette. Got really lucky to get the touchdown and 5 receptions here. With the way that game script went, it could have gone really, really bad. But with Dalvin, just short of the 100-yard bonus, no catches either, which is kind of strange for him. Yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with how the lineup turned out. I really liked Marquise Brown all week. Getting him at under 4% I thought was awesome, and then he hits a ceiling game. So overall, pretty happy with the lineup. I think if I would go back, I probably wouldn't play Mariota at this ownership. I probably wouldn't play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm happy with the way it turned out, at least.
Yeah. I just looking through, I do think that people are playing this a little bit more like their cash lineups because at least compared to the higher stakes games I played, like Mahomes got really steamed in a lot of stuff I was playing. And that was my main other team was Mahomes, and I was really disappointed at him being up near 15%. Mm-hmm. He's only 6% here. I already mentioned Burrow. I just saw him at 6%. So that's kind of interesting. You would probably, makes like I'm thinking in some of my higher stakes games, I need to go a little bit chalkier, but here maybe it's better to get a little bit off the board if people are just kind of running basically what they think is a cash team.
Yeah, and I mean hindsight is always 20/20, like I said, but I was kicking myself that I didn't have that much exposure to Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
That feels like one that, the week happens and you're like, what was I thinking? And it's so weird to see Mahomes get steamed up and Lamar to stay at what was he, 2-3% owned. I mean, that's one that I'm kicking myself.
And I saw him under 1% in some games. I know, a different site, but on FanDuel, I thought Lamar was actually even more in play on FanDuel.
Yeah.
And in the 3K Millie Maker, he was 0.7% owned. I mean, it's wild stuff. It's hard to imagine how that happened.
Well, there's still some edge, I think, is the answer there. And yeah, to your point, Andrew, I'm looking at the 11th place teams, and I say teams plural because there's 3 of them that look like they all played their cash lineup. Three names that I recognize too. So yeah, to your point, Andrew, it looks like people are playing this or most people are playing this like a like a very small field tournament, which it is, and not getting off the board very much.
Yeah, that's the same team that Levitan ran in cash. That team did very well. I wish I'd run it, but I didn't.
While we're on the subject, Andrew, what did you run in cash? I ran something similar to this, but like a 2v2.
I was a 3v3, or maybe it was a 4v4. I got up to Dobbs at the flex over Matt Collins, and then I had to drop Irv down to Juwan. And then I guess Higgins was Juju, and I got up to Josh Allen. So I guess it was quite a bit different. And then I had all small pivots, but it ended up scoring a lot different. And then at defense, I had the Jaguars.
Yeah.
My thought, like all those secondary pieces, I didn't think mattered that much. I wanted to get up to Allen over Hurts, which was I don't know, maybe it wasn't worth it. But I really thought that Philly was going to control the game, and I thought there'd be a lot of back and forth in the Miami game. And I kind of was right. Buffalo ended up running 91 plays.
Yeah.
But Hurts, I don't know, man. Hurts he's too good.
Crazy efficient, man. And the rushing is almost unparalleled. I mean, maybe Lamar Jackson is right there. But yeah, those two guys are on a tier of their own when it comes to rushing. So let's go up Wiggins to the top lineup. Geno Smith, 2%, first place after. Geno Smith double stack. This was nowhere on my radar. I liked Metcalf and Lockett because I played a lot of Mariota. But yeah, was Geno on your radar at all?
No, I mean, I liked that game, but yeah, I think I would have gone at it from the angle you did. I mean, Geno's been playing pretty well, so maybe you have to consider him. But the problem with him is that he just doesn't really run, and you're trying to compete with some of the guys at the top. It didn't seem like he could get it done, but I guess this is what you need. Although, Lamar still went off. Normally Lamar would be like 10% owned. It's just hard to fade all those guys at the top and have none of them go for 35, 40. But if you get a spot like this where they go for 25, 30, nobody plays Lamar and Geno goes for 23, then you're looking pretty good. You're threading the needle there.
Yeah, one thing, I mean, you just look at the ownerships in this lineup. He literally only has 2 people over 10%, and one of them is the defense. And I like Dameon Pierce. I probably wouldn't have liked him at 16%, but same sort of deal where you're saving at running back. Cordell Patterson, again, not really on my radar. I think just like the week before, not being involved in the pass game, but maybe I should have been more on it just with the matchup, and Seattle's no stout defense against the run, so they can get taken over. So
Well, yeah, and especially as a game stack, I think as a one-off it'd be a pretty bad play. But if you're stacking the game, like he was a middling value, he was okay, but we already talked about how bad running back was. So your opportunity cost isn't high. You can take some more flyers. Like Leone was big on Rashad Penny, who I didn't really like, but kind of similar thesis. Like he's cheap. Patterson isn't quite as cheap, but it's just such a weak position. You can do some weird things and hope to get an outlier performance.
For sure. Yeah. And then he had the Pittman Kelsey stack up here, actually played double tight end with Pitts. Actually I didn't even notice that he had it was a 5-man game stack with the Falcons and Seahawks. So I guess I was on the right game, but just not on the right side. But yeah, overall, pretty happy with the way this turned out. Wiggins, do you have anything you want to note before you leave, or tell the people where they can find you? Go ahead and plug any social media or whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I don't tweet much, but Establish a Run is where I'm doing all my work, and we got a lot of good football content over there. So yeah, if you don't know Establish a Run, check it out. But other than that, I'm kind of excited to see where the season goes with GPPs. It seems like, like I was saying, with the ownership, seems like maybe people aren't playing the chalk as much as they should right now. Not so much in this game, but in some of the other games. So I'll probably get a little bit more off the board in the Gridiron, but as a whole, I think I'm going to tend a little bit chalkier over the next couple of weeks and see how it goes.
Gotcha. Well, I wish you luck, Wiggins, and good luck in this contest. And thanks again for jumping on with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good luck out there.
Thank you. See ya.